All right, indicators that are specific to the church. They may have a unusual nervousness or anxiety about being left with groups. Since we're talking about Vacation Bible School, they may show a very intense anxiety toward being left. Let me tell you, all 2, 3, and 4-year-olds are going to have some anxiety about their mama walking out the door, right? But if this continues the whole time they're there and they're cowering or hiding behind something the whole time they're there, again, that can be an indicator that something has happened within the church setting that they're fearful of. Reluctance to participate when previously enthusiastic about it. So one year they're really excited. They always want to go to VBS, and all of a sudden they don't want to do it anymore. They always want to go to Sunday school, and all of a sudden there's a shift. There may be something that has happened. Comments such as, I don't want to be alone with, and you can fill in the name, of whoever they say, a volunteer, a children's or youth director, or a pastor. If they start saying, I don't want to be alone with Pastor Polly, I don't want to be alone with Pastor Polly, you need to take it serious, all right? They may be telling you that something has happened. Nightmares, including a child care worker or teacher as a frightening character. Oftentimes they'll try to work stuff out. And they'll say, I had a dream last night about so-and-so, and she was a monster, and she was coming in to do, whatever. Unexplained hostility toward a child care worker or teacher. So those are all indicators that can be specific to a church event. There are some adults that you may encounter who say, no, I don't go to church. I haven't gone since I was 12. And when you start to ask why, they'll shut down. It could have been something that happened at the church. Doesn't have to have been sexual, but it could have been an emotional or a physical kind of abuse that happened. Who are abusers? The sad truth is that less than 20% of abuse is perpetrated by strangers. So how many of you either taught or were taught stranger danger? You remember all that? The reality is most of abuse happens at the hands of somebody you know. A family member, an uncle, a nephew, an aunt, It's not always the men as the perpetrators. So sadly, that means 80% of abuse is perpetrated by an adult whom the child trusts and whom the child is familiar with, if not related to. I also need to let you know that sometimes the abusers are not adults. Sometimes they're teenagers. Sometimes they're younger children. There was a scenario a while back where at a church in a Houston area where it was a child within the child care system that was abusing other children. So just know that it's not always an adult. Abusers are from every racial, ethnic, economic, and social classification. They look like your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers, your relatives. Some of them are extremely charismatic and draw people to them. Others are extremely social. Some seem to have a heart for children, youth, and adults who seem troubled, alone, and vulnerable. So they're picking out the ones that they're saying, well, I'm just drawn to them because they're always alone or they're struggling. But those are also the individuals who are an easy target for a perpetrator. Some are extremely involved in activities and are designed for children and youth. The Boy Scouts just came out with just a horrendous number of young people who have been abused over the years in the Boy Scout program that had been kept under wraps for years and years and years. It was almost a 1-to-2 ratio. It was not 1 or 2 individuals abusing a mass number. It was like 1-to-2. So for every victim, for every 2 victims, there was a separate perpetrator. That is unbelievable. So abuse always happens when there is an imbalance of power. So let's talk about those balance of power scenarios. The perpetrator always has to have some sort of power over the victim in order to victimize them. And there are several sources of power that a perpetrator can use over their victim. One is size. That's obvious, okay? So, Andy, will you be an example for me for a second? Will you stand up? You put a 2-year-old by this man, it's obvious that his size is going to allow him to have power over him, right? Sometimes, you can sit down now, thank you. Sometimes it's just about strength. So power, size can also be about the strength of the individual versus the other person. So you could have a vulnerable adult who might be, almost as tall as Andy, but because for some reason they don't have the strength or the capacity to fight back, they also, then his size becomes an opportunity for abuse to happen. Position, authority, teachers, preachers, judge, police officers, leaders in programs, all of that, the authority allows them to have the opportunity to abuse. Sometimes it can be the parents who have the authority over the child, right? So all of those situations where you have authority can lead to opportunity for abuse. It can also happen between grown adults. So there was a scenario about 15 years back when one of our district superintendents in the United Methodist Church began having an affair with a pastor that was under his supervision. Okay, so both of them were married, by the way, and they both were involved in it. The district superintendent turned in his resignation, turned in his license, and the female pastor did not want to let go of her pastorate, and so everybody became aware of it, and so it's a difficult scenario, y'all. It doesn't always have to be someone who has extreme authority over you, but any authority over you. This is the district superintendent, that. And so the district superintendent should have been held solely responsible for that because, again, those who are abused should never be blamed, right? Knowledge. Sometimes it's just about the perceived wisdom of the other individual, or the knowledge. It might be, I know who your parents are. I know where you live. Okay, that's knowledge. Or it could be, listen, this is just normal. You just don't know it because you haven't learned this yet. This is just normal behavior. There's nothing wrong with this. This is what all fathers and daughters do, right? So they can use knowledge to try to open up the opportunity for abuse. Money, any kind of wealth, any kind of social class position sort of thing can be used as an opportunity for abuse. It often happens between peers. Let me tell you, 1 in 4 girls on the college campus is raped the first year they're there. I'm not saying this to scare y'all. I'm just telling you so that you'll learn to become aware of your situation and your surroundings and protect yourselves, right? Guys, the scenario goes to, a lot of times it's called date rape, and the guys think it's no big deal. But I know Daniel will tell you this, you are created to be protectors. And the enemy has taken that and twisted it. It's not allowed you to understand that to really fully understand who you are as a man is to be a protector of women and children. And so remember that when you are given the opportunity, when God blesses you with the opportunity to date someone or spend time with them, that he's also giving you the responsibility to be a protector over them physically, emotionally, spiritually. So make sure that you are doing everything you can to keep yourself out of a situation where you can either become an abuser or abused, all right? How do we help? One of the ways is by participating in these trainings, so that we become aware of the reality of what goes on. We leave behind the notion that someone in Franklin, Texas could never be abused. We used to think that Franklin, Texas kind of lived in a bowl and tornadoes just went over us. We no longer think that, do we? But we don't want to wait till there's a mass story of abuse that comes out for us to begin to understand that it is possible, right? So we want to be proactive. So we prefer to use a 2-adult policy whenever possible. However, there will be times when you need to follow the grouping of 3 or more. So in other words, if you are asked to teach a classroom and the classrooms are small, we don't have the resources to put 2 teachers in every room, you want to make sure that it's always a 1 to 2. In other words, 1 adult, 2 kids. That is as much for your protection as anything else. I can tell you there has also been scenarios where false accusations are made, and it has taken teachers down, it has taken pastors down, it has taken youth directors down. So you want to be sure that you are creating a scenario that is equally as protective for you in the situation you're in, right? If the situation requires 1 adult and 1 child, then that adult must be out in the open. For instance, we're doing Vacation Bible School. You're at the games station. There, all the kids are participating, all the adults are helping, and some kid says, I have to go to the bathroom. All right, you have 2 options. You can take the 1 child, stay in the open down the, because the bathroom's where it can be seen, you stay visible, and you take that child, you stay outside the door, you don't go in with them, that sort of thing. Or you can say, great, find a buddy to come with you, right? So take 2 children with you. Again, trying to keep that scenario of 3 grouping at all times. When you get into the younger children, here's the struggle. 2-year-olds are often dressed in clothing that there is no way they are capable of taking on or putting on, reattaching buttons, that sort of thing. So you may end up having to help them. Let's just be blunt about it. When you get to the bathroom and they're in the stall, let them do as much as they can physically do by themselves. When that 2-year-old says, I can't wipe my bottom, we are not going to tell them to pull their underwear up and go the rest of the day with a dirty bottom, okay? But we're going to take some steps that will help us to protect ourselves and protect that child. You're going to leave the stall door open. You're going to say to the child, are you asking me to wipe your bottom? Child says yes. All right, I'm going to wipe your bottom. It sounds silly that we have to do this, y'all, but it is the means of protecting yourself and that child, right? So that you're both clear what's being asked and what's being done. Do as little as you can to help that child, but again, keep the stall open. We usually keep the bathroom doors open, particularly in the preschool area. So again, that's another, taking away another obstacle that would permit abuse to happen, right? So remember that. Stay as visible as possible in those scenarios. There will be a sign-in policy on both campuses for the classrooms. I can't tell you what they will be for VBS. I'm not in charge of setting that up. So when you find out what the sign-in policy is, please follow it to the letter, all right? We don't ever want a child to disappear out of the scenario and we don't know what's going on. You as leaders in a group need to be counters. That's just the way it is. If you have 6 in your group, you're going to be counting 6 all day long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, they're over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure you have them. You become their protector for the day. If a child disappears, that's an opportunity for abuse to be happening, right? So you're going to be protectors. Count those children. Follow the sign.